The German Shepherd whelps 5 puppies. The veterinarian's alarming revelation astonishes everybody present. The occurrence will astonish you. Please like, share, and comment on your location of viewership. The rain struck the glass with relentless force, akin to furious fists seeking admission. Sarah Mitchell rested her forehead against the chilled glass, observing lightning fracture the sky into irregular segments. The gentle whining of her cherished German shepherd resonated in the otherwise quiet living room. Maya was in labor, and something felt amiss. "Mark," Sarah telephoned, her tone strained with concern. "I believe the moment has here." Her husband emerged in the doorway, a towel draped over his shoulder. His countenance, always serene and cheerful, was taut with apprehension. "Dr. Carter has just sent a text message. He is 5 minutes distant." Sarah acknowledged and redirected her attention to Maya, who was positioned on her side within the spacious whelping box they had arranged weeks already. The dog's amber eyes, often luminous and vigilant, were obscured by discomfort. Sarah caressed Maya's dense fur, murmuring reassurances she doubted herself. Maya had exhibited unusual behavior in recent days. Agitated, apprehensive, not resembling the assured, well-conditioned police dog she had been prior to retirement. Sarah attributed it to pregnancy anxiety, but as thunder rumbled above and Maya's whimpers intensified, she began to suspect there could be something more significant at play. The doorbell chimed, disrupting the taut silence. Mark hurried to respond, returning shortly with Dr. Carter, their veterinarian of 5 years. Water cascaded from his raincoat as he placed his medical bag down and approached the whelping box. "What is the status of our girl?" he inquired, kneeling near Maya. The German shepherd acknowledged him and permitted him to examine her vitals, while her gaze remained fixed on Sarah's face. "Something is amiss," Sarah stated, not articulating it as an inquiry. "I perceive it." Dr. Carter's quiet during his examination of Maya merely validated her apprehensions. Ultimately, he raised his gaze, his forehead creased. "Her vital signs are robust, but—" He paused, perusing the notes on his iPad. "What, however?" Mark inquired, kneeling near them. Dr. Carter's gaze intensified beneath his spectacles. "The ultrasound conducted last week revealed 4 puppies. Standard dimensions, unremarkable, although her abdomen exhibits. Altered now, more bloated than it ought to be." Sarah experienced a sensation of nausea. "What is the significance of that?" Dr. Carter confessed uncertainty, his tone calibrated in a manner that heightened Sarah's discomfort. "It may be inconsequential. Let us concentrate on assisting these puppies into the world, shall we?" During the subsequent hour, the tempest outside appeared to parallel Maya's labor. Intense, erratic, and increasingly potent by the minute. Sarah cradled Maya's head in her lap, caressing her ears and softly offering encouragement as the initial contractions commenced in earnest. "That is sufficient, girl," she murmured. "Your performance is commendable." The initial puppy arrived with unexpected simplicity. A little damp bundle that Dr. Carter promptly dried and positioned adjacent to Maya's head. The German shepherd promptly commenced licking her infant, meticulously cleaning it with soft, thorough strokes of her tongue. Dr. Carter announced the birth of a son. Optimal size, robust pulmonary function. Immediately, the small puppy emitted an unexpectedly loud squeak. Mark chuckled, the stress briefly alleviated. "Resembles his mother. Recall how Maya would bark at squirrels at 5 a.m.? Sarah smiled. However, her gaze remained directed at Dr. Carter, who observed Maya with remarkable focus. "Is all well?" "Indeed," he responded, a fraction too hastily. "Let us examine the subsequent item." The second dog arrived 20 minutes subsequently, inferior in size to the initial, although as expressive. A female, followed by a male, then a female, and finally another male. Maya meticulously washed her puppies with consistent diligence each time. With each occurrence, Dr. Carter's frown intensified, Mark remarked, smiling as he observed the 4 healthy puppies wriggling against their mother. "As you anticipated, Doctor." However, Dr. Carter did not exhibit a smile. He was applying gentle pressure to Maya's abdomen, his expression increasingly reflecting concern. "What is it?" Sarah inquired. Her heart began to rush. "Dr." Carter began to speak when Maya abruptly tensed. Her back arched, and a low, anguished growl emanated from her throat, distinct from any sound she had produced during the births of the previous puppies. "Dr." Carter stated in a near whisper that she remains in labor. "There is an additional one." "Yet another?" Mark reiterated. "However, you stated, I am aware of my statement." "Dr." Carter interrupted him, extending his hand for the stethoscope. "There is a discrepancy." Present. Maya's subsequent contraction arrived with such intensity that she cried out, a scream that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. In the 5 years they had her, during training exercises and actual police operations, Sarah had never heard Maya articulate pain in such a manner. "It is approaching, Dr." Carter stated, preparing to provide assistance if necessary. "This one is distinct. It is." The words perished in his throat as Maya exerted a final effort. Upon the emergence of the 5th puppy, the veterinarian's countenance became ashen. He retreated, his hands quivering slightly. "What is it?" Sarah inquired, perplexed by the source of such a response. "What is the issue with it?" "Dr." Carter did not respond. He gazed at the newborn with an expression that Sarah found difficult to identify. Shock intertwined with an expression resembling terror. "Is it deceased?" Mark inquired, repositioning himself for a clearer view. "No, Dr." Carter stated, his voice almost perceptible over the tempest. "It is indeed vibrant." He meticulously groomed the dog and positioned it alongside the others. It was only then that Sarah discerned what had unsettled the seasoned veterinarian. The 5th puppy was significantly larger than its siblings. Its coat was deeper, nearly black, in contrast to the brownish gray of the others. However, it was the puppy's gaze that caused Sarah to momentarily lose her breath. While the other neonates had their eyes firmly closed, this ones were open, vigilant, observing and monitoring every movement in the room with an uncanny awareness. "That is unfeasible," Mark murmured. "Puppies are unable to open their eyes for a minimum of 1 week post-birth." "Dr." Carter nodded, his analytical intellect evidently striving to comprehend the phenomena before them. "Precisely," he stated, grasping his tablet with trembling palms. "This is why this should not occur." Maya, having diligently attended to her first 4 puppies, switched her gaze to the 5th. Her response was instantaneous and unsettling. The German Shepherd became tense, her ears flattened, emitting a low growl from her chest. "Maya," Sarah remarked, perplexed. "What is troubling you, young lady?" Maya retreated from the 5th puppy, using her nose to nudge the other 4 behind her, as though safeguarding them. "I have never encountered anything of this nature, Dr." Carter said, more to himself rather than the astonished pair. A mother unequivocally rejecting a single puppy. The 5th puppy, in contrast to its siblings who were fervently seeking their mother's warmth, remained completely motionless. It neither wept nor resisted. It observed, its dark eyes locked on Maya with an intensity that seems inconceivable for a being of minutes old. "Should we assist it in nursing?" Mark inquired, disrupting the profound silence. "Dr." Carter exhibited hesitation. "I will conduct some preliminary checks first. This is at the very least atypical." While the veterinarian meticulously lifted the puppy for assessment, Sarah observed an additional peculiarity. In contrast to the other babies, who were damp and creased with frail, curled limbs, this infant's physique appeared more sculpted. Its paws were larger, and its muscles were more developed. It resembled a dog several weeks old rather than a baby, seemingly constricted into an inadequately sized body. "Mark," she murmured, unable to avert her gaze from the spectacle. "What is occurring?" Her husband nodded in disbelief, equally captivated. "I am uncertain. I have assisted in the delivery of numerous litters on my parents' farm, although I have never encountered anything of this nature." "Dr." Carter was assessing the puppy's heartbeat, his professional composure deteriorating with each moment. "The heart rate is robust, excessively so for a neonate. He assessed its responses, and his eyebrows raised in surprise. It is reacting to stimuli as an older puppy would. The puppy remained unnervingly silent during the examination, its eyes tracking every movement with disquieting accuracy. Externally, the tempest had started to diminish, while internally, an alternative form of strain was escalating. "What actions shall we undertake?" Sarah inquired, instinctively approaching Maya, who continued to observe the fifth puppy with evident skepticism. Dr. Carter meticulously returned the puppy to the whelping box, albeit at a slight remove from the others. He expressed a desire to conduct several experiments. His clinical demeanor contrasts with the discomfort seen in his eyes. "Commence with blood analysis. I possess a portable kit in my vehicle." As he rose to collect his equipment, the fifth dog executed an action that immobilized everyone. It rose, unstable yet resolute, and advanced 2 faltering steps toward Maya. Neonatal puppies were unable to ambulate. It was a physical impossibility. Their eyes were shut, their legs feeble, and their brains insufficiently developed for coordinated action. There was advancing with intent. Its dark eyes focused on its mother. Maya emitted a low growl, a menacing warning sound that Sarah had previously encountered only once, during a training exercise when an armed suspect had trapped them. Maya exhibited her most severe threat show, aimed at her own progeny. The puppy halted, appearing to evaluate the circumstances. Subsequently, in a seemingly intentional gesture, it averted its gaze from Maya and reclined, remaining observant and silent. Sarah sensed Mark's palm enveloping hers, his grasp firm. Dr. Carter remained immobilized in the doorway, his medical bag neglected. He began, "I do not," then cleared his throat. "I believe we should not leave it with the others tonight, until we acquire further information." Maya appeared to concur with him for once. The German Shepherd had assembled her 4 puppies nearby, positioning her body between them and their atypical sibling. While Mark assisted Dr. Carter in establishing a distinct space for the 5th puppy, Sarah was unable to dispel the sensation that they were confronting something beyond their comprehension. The storm had subsided, yet the rain continued to patter against the windows, now gentler, resembling fingers drumming on a table while contemplating a challenging issue. The puppy permitted itself to be relocated without objection, its gaze fixed on Sarah's face. At that instant, as their eyes met, Sarah experienced an inexplicable sensation, a chilling certainty that their lives would irrevocably change after tonight. "It will be okay," Mark asserted, misinterpreting her expression as mere concern instead of the profound fear that had taken root in her stomach. "The individual is simply distinct, that is all." Sarah nodded, unable to articulate her thoughts, as she instinctively recognized that the events unfolding in their home tonight transcended mere differences. As though attuned to her thoughts, the 5th dog blinked once, slowly and intentionally. For a little moment, Sarah believed she perceived an element in those black eyes that seemed incongruous for a newborn: recognition. The subsequent days were permeated by an unusual tension that lingered in the atmosphere akin to the residual aroma of rain following a tempest. Sarah had an inexplicable attraction to the improvised enclosure designated for the 5th puppy, observing it with a blend of interest and discomfort that she could not articulate to Mark or even to herself. In contrast to the other puppies, who predominantly engaged in sleeping, feeding, and emitting faint mewling sounds, the 5th youngster, which Mark had tentatively named the big man, seldom slept at all. It scrutinized, it monitored. Its dark eyes tracked Sarah throughout the room with an intensity that caused the hair on the back of her neck to rise. "I believe we should assign him a name," Mark remarked on the 3rd morning, approaching Sarah as she stood beside the pen. "We cannot continue referring to him as the 5th individual or the large one." Sarah exhibited hesitation. Designating it seemed akin to acknowledging a reality she was unprepared to confront. "Let us await Dr. Carter's test findings," she concluded. "I seek to ascertain the nature of the situation initially." Mark grasped her hand, applying a gentle pressure. "It remains merely a puppy. Sarah? Distinct, indeed, yet still one of Maya's. Sarah harbored uncertainty. Maya obviously disagreed. The German Shepherd entirely rejected the fifth puppy, refusing to nurse it or acknowledge its presence. Sarah was compelled to bottle feed it, an event that did not alleviate her increasing anxiety. Most neonatal puppies grappled with bottle feeding, their small jaws ineptly maneuvering against the rubber nipple. The fifth puppy promptly accepted the bottle, sipping with a steady, regulated pace that appeared remarkable for its age. Its gaze remained steadfastly set on Sarah's face throughout, unblinking and disconcertingly perceptive. The doorbell chimed, interrupting Sarah's contemplation. Maya, who had been napping beside her four typical puppies, raised her head and emitted a gentle woof of acknowledgement. Mark stated that it would be the doctor as he proceeded towards the door. Dr. Carter appeared as though he had not rested since his previous appointment. His eyes were bloodshot behind his spectacles, and his usually tidy demeanor was disheveled, suggesting he had been too absorbed to pay attention. He stated without introduction that he had obtained the preliminary results, his attention promptly shifting to the pen where the fifth puppy observed him. I require the execution of additional tests. Sarah experienced a contraction in her abdomen. What did you discover? Dr. Carter raked his hand through his receding hair, an expression of frustration that Sarah had never witnessed from him previously. That is precisely the point, he stated, his voice subdued. I am uncertain about what I discovered. Is the blood test available? It is illogical. What is your meaning? Mark inquired, guiding everyone to the kitchen table, distancing them from both groups of puppies. Dr. Carter retrieved his tablet and navigated to a chart that held no significance for Sarah. The cellular architecture is atypical. The DNA does not completely correspond with Maya's. Sarah scowled. However, that is typical, correct? It would possess DNA from both progenitors. Indeed, although Dr. Carter activated the screen, displaying an additional chart. Despite considering that, there remain oddities that I cannot elucidate. Markers that exhibit no resemblance to standard canine DNA. A profound hush enveloped the kitchen. A vehicle passed by, its tires hissing on the moist pavement. What are you articulating? Mark ultimately inquired, his tone meticulously restrained. Dr. Carter declined in agreement. I am not making any definitive statements at this time. Consequently, I require additional tests. Having practiced veterinary medicine for 30 years, I have never encountered a puppy like this one. Its movement and observation exhibit a rapid development that contradicts my understanding of canine biology. To emphasize his statement, a gentle thud emanated from the living room. All three adults turned to observe the fifth puppy, positioned at the edge of its enclosure, with its paws resting on the barrier, gazing at them. It had significantly increased after a mere 3 days. Its body elongated, its legs robust, its dark coat denser. It cannot escape, can it? Sarah murmured, her voice tinged with anxiety. Dr. Carter's silence was a sufficient response. Mark stated that he would create another barrier as he swiftly proceeded to the living room. Upon nearing the pen, the puppy reclined upon the floor, maintaining its gaze and remaining silent. Sarah redirected her attention to Dr. Carter. What actions shall we undertake? The veterinarian's fingers tapped anxiously on the tablet. I wish to bring the puppy to my clinic for observation, for a duration of 1 or 2 days. I possess more advanced equipment there, and people with whom I can confer. Indeed, Sarah responded promptly, a sense of relief washing over her. Present day. Currently. Dr. Carter acquiesced. However, his demeanor remained perturbed. There is further information you should be aware of. Yesterday, I conducted several inquiries to gather information regarding Maya's background. Sarah became rigid. Maya was adopted at the age of 2 after being retired prematurely from police service owing to a minor hip injury. They were aware that she sprang from a specialist breeding program for police and military working dogs. However, the specifics had consistently remained ambiguous. What information did you uncover? Mark inquired, having returned from securing the puppy's enclosure. Dr. Carter directed his gaze towards the living room, modulating his voice. The breeding facility from which Maya originated, K9 Elite Solutions, was closed 3 years ago. Allegations and ethical concerns were raised. What specific ethical problems exist? Sarah inquired, her mouth abruptly parched. Dr. Carter exhibited reluctance. Experimental breeding methods and unsubstantiated claims regarding genetic manipulation have been suggested, although no evidence has been established. The establishment was shut down, and the documents were sealed by judicial decree. Mark's complexion had turned ashen. Do you believe they harmed Maya? Something that influenced her pregnancy? Dr. Carter acknowledged uncertainty, but indicated that he has contacted a former colleague who served as a consultant for several of these breeding operations. He may possess further knowledge. Sarah experienced a shiver ascend her spine. When is the puppy available for adoption? Dr. Carter stated while standing, I have my carrier in the car. We are capable of accomplishing it at this moment. As they returned to the living room, Sarah observed something that caused her to halt abruptly. The pen was devoid of ink. Mark, she said, her voice strained with anxiety. Did you secure it? Her spouse nodded, his expression transitioning from perplexity to concern upon observing the vacant pen. I installed an additional tier of fencing. A deep growl from Maya interrupted him. The German shepherd stood upright, her body tense, her eyes focused on a location behind the couch. She deliberately positioned herself between her 4 puppies and the perceived threat. It is located behind the couch, Mark murmured. Dr. Carter gestured for them to remain at a distance as he cautiously advanced, carrier in hand. Greetings, young one, he remarked, his tone unnaturally upbeat. How did you escape? HM? No reply emanated from behind the couch. Absence of motion, absence of sound. Dr. Carter advanced with deliberate strides. He gazed behind the couch, and his body became still. He spoke gently. That is extraordinary. What is the inquiry? Sarah inquired, unable to perceive from her vantage point. Dr. Carter straightened his expression, reflecting a blend of scientific intrigue and profound apprehension. It is constructed, resembling a nest. Are you utilizing cushions from the chair as one of your dish towels? Mark turned to see, and his abrupt inhalation validated the veterinarian's statement. How did it obtain a dish towel from the kitchen? Sarah experienced a sudden onset of vertigo. The kitchen was located down a hallway, around a corner, and was not visible from the living room. For the puppy to have gone there, retrieved the towel, and returned unnoticed by any of them. I disapprove of this, she remarked, her voice scarcely perceptible. I desire its immediate removal. Dr. Carter acknowledged with a nod, cautiously extending his hand behind the couch. Shortly thereafter, he stood upright, the 5th puppy firmly grasped in his hands. In contrast to the other puppies, which would have wriggled and whined when lifted, this one stayed completely motionless, its dark eyes focused on Sarah. Dr. Carter exclaimed, swiftly securing the dog in the carrier. I will contact you as soon as I acquire additional information. As the veterinarian fastened the carrier, Sarah observed something that chilled her to the bone. The puppy's gaze remained fixed on her face. However, now it exhibited a disconcerting semblance of calculating. Ensure his well-being, Mark instructed as he escorted Dr. Carter to the exit. Sarah wished to object. That entity was not a guy. It was a what? Her ignorance constituted the issue. Upon Dr. Carter's departure, Mark discovered her seated on the floor behind Maya and her puppies, with the German shepherd's head resting guardingly in her lap. It will be fine, he stated, positioning himself alongside her. Dr. Carter will ascertain the situation. Sarah caressed Maya's ears, deriving solace from the familiar texture of her fur. I continually contemplate his remarks regarding the breeding facility. What if they harmed her? What if that puppy is the outcome of an experimental procedure? Mark exhaled deeply, rubbing his palm across his face. It is conceivable, I suppose. However, let us refrain from making hasty assumptions. A completely sensible explanation may exist for all of this. Sarah regarded him with skepticism. Such as what? What logical explanation accounts for a newborn puppy that possesses the ability to see, move, escape from a protected enclosure, and pilfer dishcloth from a separate room? Mark confessed his uncertainty. However, becoming agitated over it will not be beneficial. Let's await Dr. Carter's call. The remainder of the day elapsed with agonizing sluggishness. Sarah became startled by minor sounds, repeatedly verifying the locks on the doors, as though the puppy may suddenly reappear. Absurd, she acknowledged, yet she could not dispel the sensation of being observed. Maya appeared more composed following the departure of the fifth youngster, caring for her 4 healthy pups with the innate dedication of a nurturing mother. Occasionally, the German Shepherd would raise her head, ears erect, surveying the room with vigilant caution. As the phone rang shortly after supper, both Sarah and Mark reached for it eagerly. "Doctor," Sarah stated, activating the speakerphone, "what have you discovered?" The veterinarian's voice was strained, even via the telephone. "I prefer to address this matter in person. Could you please arrive at the clinic immediately?" Sarah and Mark exchanged apprehensive looks. "Is everything satisfactory?" Mark inquired. "A cessation. Excessively lengthy. Simply proceed to the clinic. Kindly?" 20 minutes later, they arrived in the parking lot of Carter Veterinary Services. The edifice was dimly lit, save for illumination emanating from the rear office. Dr. Carter greeted them at the entrance, hastily inviting them in, seemingly apprehensive about being observed. "What is occurring?" Sarah inquired immediately after the door shut behind them. "You are instilling fear in us." Dr. Carter guided them through the quiet clinic to his office. While traversing the examination corridors, Sarah observed a closed door, obstructed by what appeared to be a substantial equipment cart. "Is the puppy present within?" she inquired, gesturing toward the obstructed entrance. Dr. Carter's jaw clenched. "Affirmative. What is the reason for the door being obstructed in such manner?" The veterinarian did not respond until everyone were seated in his office. The door shut securely. He stated that he conducted additional experiments, his tone meticulously restrained. Hematological analysis, histological specimens, bone radiography. He rotated his computer monitor to confront them, displaying a sequence of X-ray images. "This was the puppy when I brought it in this morning." He indicated an illustration depicting a skeletal structure akin to what Sarah would anticipate for a newborn puppy, albeit somewhat more advanced in development. Dr. Carter proceeded, advancing to a new image, stating, "This is from 1 hour ago." Sarah leaned forward, initially perplexed by her observation. Comprehension emerged, and her palm swiftly covered her mouth. "That cannot be correct." The skeleton in the second photograph exhibited notable differences. Extended, more compact, with a more pronounced skeletal framework. More akin to a puppy several weeks old, rather than several days old. "It is expanding," Dr. Carter stated softly. "Swiftly. I measured it at initial arrival and again this evening. It has increased by over 2 inches in length and 1 pound in weight, within a span of 12 hours. Mark shook his head, incredulity evident on his face. "That is not feasible." Dr. Carter concurred. "Nevertheless, it is occurring. This entity does not adhere to conventional biological principles." Sarah experienced illness. "You repeatedly refer to it as a creature. Do you believe it is not a dog at all?" Dr. Carter ran his hand through his hair once more, a motion that was becoming increasingly recognizable. "I believe it is partially a canine. The DNA analyses reveal canine markers, with some corresponding to Maya's. However, there are further indicators as well. Unidentifiable sequences. What is the significance of that?" Mark inquired. Dr. Carter stated cautiously that there is a possibility that someone has interfered with Maya's pregnancy, potentially introducing foreign DNA, either via artificial insemination or more sophisticated techniques. An oppressive quiet enveloped the office. The wind intensified, whistling through the trees bordering the clinic's parking lot. "Is it possible to view it?" Mark ultimately inquired. Dr. Carter paused momentarily before acquiescing with a nod. "Affirmative, but remain vigilant. It has also undergone alterations in other aspects." He guided them along the corridor to the fortified examination room. After a brief, anxious glance at Sarah and Mark, he shifted the equipment cart and unlocked the door. The chamber was poorly illuminated, including a big metal kennel positioned at the center. Upon entering, Sarah instantly perceived an alteration in the ambience of the place. A palpable tension, akin to the sensation preceding the onset of a rainstorm. In the midst of the kennel, the fifth puppy sat still. However, it scarcely resembled a puppy any longer. In the time since their last observation, it had expanded to approximately the dimensions of a month-old German Shepherd. Its fur was glossy and deep-hued. Its muscles are conspicuously delineated beneath its skin, which is atypical for early puppies. However, it was the eyes that rendered Sarah breathless. They retained their unsettling darkness, although now they possessed an additional quality: intellect, computation, and a profundity that appeared unattainable. The dog, if it could still be termed as such, gazed directly at Sarah, and its mouth expanded in a manner that nearly resembled a smile. "Oh my God," she said, automatically retreating. "Dr. Carter acknowledged with a somber nod. "This condition has persisted since I submitted it. Observing. Awaiting. I assure you it comprehends all our utterances." Mark approached the kennel, his fascination superseding his apprehension. "Greetings, esteemed individual," he uttered gently. The puppy's head inclined slightly, its stare directed at Mark with disconcerting accuracy. Carter said, "I would advise against getting too close, Doctor. Earlier today, one of my assistants attempted to change its water and—" He bared his forearm, exposing 4 elongated, inflamed crimson streaks. "Did it inflict a scratch upon you?" Sarah inquired, appalled. "No, Dr. Carter stated, adjusting his sleeve back down. "My aid." She described it, as if an overwhelming force compelled her to inflict harm upon herself. She does not recall doing the action. Mark promptly retreated from the kennel. "Are you asserting that it exerted power on her in some manner?" "I'm uncertain of my statements, Dr. Carter confessed, his analytical intellect evidently grappling with the ramifications. "However, this entity is not only progressed in a physical sense. There exists an additional element that eludes my explanation." Sarah experienced a chilling fear accumulating in her abdomen. "We must contact an individual, either the police or another entity, or animal regulation, or what should I communicate to them?" Dr. Carter inquired. "We possess a puppy that is maturing at an accelerated rate, that we believe may possess—" "What is the inquiry? Paranormal capabilities?" "They would consider us irrational. What action should we take next?" Mark insisted. "This cannot be disregarded." Dr. Carter exhaled deeply, visibly exhibiting the weight of his 60 years. "I have contacted a geneticist at the university who specializes in atypical mutations. She will arrive tomorrow morning to inspect." "What occurs in the interim?" Sarah inquired. "I will remain here and observe it till that time. You both should return home, recuperate, and attend to Maya and the other puppies." Sarah was reluctant to depart, especially with numerous questions remaining unanswered. However, she could not refute her fatigue. She was concerned about Maya, who had endured considerable hardship. She acquiesced with reluctance. "Will you contact us if there are any alterations? Anything whatsoever?" Dr. Carter acquiesced. "Certainly." As they prepared to depart, the puppy emitted a squeak, marking its initial vocalization. Not a bark or a whine, but a low, rumbling sound that resembled laughter. Sarah recoiled, hastening out the room without glancing back. The journey home was devoid of sound. They were both absorbed in their own contemplations. Upon entering their driveway, Sarah observed something unusual. "Mark," she said, gesturing towards the neighboring residence across the street. "Is that not Mrs. Davis's dog? The one she consistently walks?" Mark directed his attention to a little Yorkshire Terrier that was desperately scratching at the Davises' front door, yipping in evident misery. "Indeed, that is Baxter. It is peculiar that he is outside at such a late hour." Mark scowled. "Mrs. Davis is often quite stringent on the use of a leash while taking him out." Sarah experienced a moment of apprehension. Perhaps we ought to inquire about her well-being. They traversed the street collectively. As they neared, Baxter faced them, his diminutive form trembling with apprehension. Upon sighting them, he emitted a high-pitched cry and dashed toward them, furiously surrounding their legs. "Something is amiss," Sarah remarked, bending down to soothe the agitated dog. "Mrs. Davis, are you present at home?" She summoned attention by pounding on the door. No response was received from within. The residence was dim and silent. Mark tested the doorknob and discovered it was unlocked, which was atypical for their security-minded neighbor. "Mrs. Davis," he addressed her as they entered. "It is Mark and Sarah from the opposite side of the street." The residence was unsettlingly quiet. In the subdued illumination from the street, Sarah observed that everything appeared to be in order. No indications of fight or forced entry, merely void. "She's advanced in age," Mark remarked in a subdued tone. "Perhaps she experienced a medical emergency?" They examined the living room, the kitchen, and ultimately the bedroom. The bed was meticulously arranged, devoid of any occupants. A cup of tea rested on the counter, completely cold. Sarah remarked, gazing through the kitchen window, that her automobile remains in the garage. Her purse is present. However, there is no Mrs. Davis. Baxter whined at their feet, evidently agitated by his owner's departure. Mark resolved to contact the police, retrieving his phone. As Mark conversed with the dispatcher, Sarah knelt to console Baxter. The small dog was quivering, his gaze repeatedly shifting to the window overlooking their residence. Their residence was the location where, until this morning, the fifth puppy had resided. "It is acceptable, companion," she said, caressing his smooth ears. "We will locate her." However, as she articulated her thoughts, a chilling notion began to take shape in the recesses of her mind. Initially, the peculiar puppy. Now, their neighbor has disappeared without a remnant. It appeared to be an excessive coincidence. 20 minutes later, the police arrived, consisting of 2 officers who recorded their statement and performed a cursory search of the residence. They assured they would submit a missing persons report and investigate local hospitals. However, Sarah discerned that they were not excessively worried. An officer said that elderly individuals occasionally become disoriented and stray away. It had not been a considerable duration yet. "We will temporarily assume responsibility for Baxter," Sarah proposed, "until Mrs. Davis is located." The officers expressed their gratitude, and shortly thereafter, they returned to their residence, where a visibly worried Baxter was pacing restlessly in the living room. Maya observed the diminutive puppy from her position in the whelping box, her demeanor notably vigilant for a new mother. Sarah stated her intention to check on the puppies, seeking the solace of routine. The 4 puppies were huddled together in a cozy heap, slumbering peacefully. Their diminutive bodies ascended and descended with each breath, their minuscule paws intermittently twitching in slumber. They appeared flawless, innocent, embodying all the qualities of a puppy, in stark contrast to their brother, if he was indeed their brother. Sarah's phone rang, surprising her. The name of Dr. Carter illuminated the screen. "Is everything satisfactory?" she inquired promptly. There was interference on the line. Dr. Carter's speech, fragmented and absent, somehow escaped. Never witnessed something comparable. Sarah's heart commenced to thump vigorously. "Physician? Carter? Are you terminating the relationship? Did you indicate that it is absent?" "Everywhere I searched, the doors were secured, rendering access impossible. The connection was severed." Sarah gazed at Mark, who had comprehended sufficiently. "It has escaped," she said, her voice almost audible. "The puppy fled from the clinic." Mark's complexion drained of color. "That is not feasible. Dr. Carter housed it in a protected kennel within a locked room." "Nevertheless," Sarah remarked, "here we find ourselves." Neither articulated the evident inquiry. "Where's the puppy now if it has escaped?" A faint whimper attracted their gaze to Baxter, who had positioned himself by the window, gazing into the darkness, his body tense with trepidation. Sarah accompanied him, gazing into the night. Initially, she observed only the tranquil suburban street, the amber illumination of streetlights, and the opaque windows of adjacent residences. She then observed a shadow traversing Mrs. Davis's front yard, excessively huge to be a cat, yet insufficiently so for an adult dog, advancing with intent. "It is approaching," she exclaimed, retreating from the window. "Mark, it is approaching our residence." Mark was already in motion, verifying that the doors were locked and the windows secured. "It is merely a puppy," he asserted. However, his tone was devoid of conviction. "Despite its rapid growth, it remains merely a—" "Do not," Sarah interrupted him. "You observed it at the clinic. You listened to Dr. Carter's remarks. That object is not merely trivial." Baxter's whine had evolved into an incessant, high-pitched cry of anguish. Maya, upon hearing it, ascended from her whelping box and positioned herself in front of her puppies, her stance defensive, a low growl emanating from her throat. Both creatures were gazing at the front entrance. Subsequently, a sound emerged, a faint scratching, scarcely perceptible yet unmistakable. An entity was at their door, seeking entry. "Mark," Sarah murmured, immobilized. "What actions do we undertake?" Prior to his response, an additional sound accompanied the scratching, a low, nearly human voice that appeared to emanate through the crevices surrounding the door. "Allow me entry." It spoke, the phrase distorted and peculiar, yet still discernible. "Mother," Sarah experienced a sudden weakness in her knees. "Did it merely—" Mark acquiesced, his countenance pallid. "It articulated, it referred to you as mother." The scratching became very persistent. "Permit me entry. The external temperature is frigid. I desire to return home." The voice sounded juvenile, yet the tone was inappropriate, monotonous and devoid of passion, resembling an imitation of speech lacking comprehension of the sentiments conveyed. Maya's snarl intensified as she positioned herself between the door and her puppies, exposing her teeth. "We ought to contact someone," Sarah remarked, her voice quivering. "The police, animal control, or what should I communicate to them?" Mark responded, reiterating Dr. Carter's previous inquiry, that we were being pursued by a conversing puppy. The scraping ceased abruptly. There was a brief moment of stillness. Subsequently, a sound that instilled profound fear in Sarah emerged, the unmistakable click of the doorknob rotating. "I believed you secured it," she whispered to Mark. "I have done so." The door creaked open gradually, disclosing the shadowy figure positioned on their doorstep. It was the fifth puppy, although it appeared different from their prior observation. In the hours following its escape from the facility, it had increased further in size. It now resembled a fully developed border collie, with a sleek, muscular physique and a dark coat that shimmered in the porch light. Its gaze, upon encountering Sarah's, was strikingly human. "Hello, mother," it articulated, its mouth contorting in a strange imitation of speech, producing sounds that no canine should be capable of uttering. "I am at home." Maya surged forward with a fierce bark, positioning herself between the beast and her family. The fifth puppy, no longer fitting the definition of a puppy in any significant way, observed her with what appeared to be amusement. It informed Maya that it was not her puppy. It never occurred. Mark had seized a baseball bat from the closet and was brandishing it before him, albeit with trembling hands. "Maintain your distance," he said. "Regardless of your identity, maintain your distance." The creature inclined its head, observing him with an expression that resembled pity. It stated that it would not cause you harm. "I have just returned home. This is not your residence," Sarah articulated, overcoming her fear. "Your presence is unwelcome here." A glimmer appeared in the creature's two human eyes, possibly anger or pain. It asserted its origin here. "Mother is present." It advanced, prompting Maya's growl to escalate into a snarl. The German Shepherd was among the most proficiently trained canines Sarah had ever encountered. Exhibits sufficient discipline to collaborate with law enforcement in high-pressure scenarios. However, confronted with this aberration that had emerged from her own body, Maya's instincts were superseding her training. She launched an assault. The subsequent events transpired too rapidly for Sarah to comprehend entirely. Maya lunged at the thing, exposing her teeth. every muscle in her formidable physique concentrated on the impending danger. The monster maneuvered with astonishing speed, evading Maya's strike with an elegance that appeared unattainable. Subsequently, it articulated once more, not in its fractured, simplistic English, but through a succession of low, guttural utterances that Sarah had never encountered previously. It appears that no dog could produce such a sound. It appears that no human could produce this. Maya halted abruptly in her lunge, her body becoming abnormally rigid. Her eyes, always vibrant and attentive, appeared to dull. "Maya," Sarah exclaimed, anxiety surging in her throat. "Maya, approach here, girl." The German shepherd failed to reply. She remained utterly still, as though suspended between times. "What actions did you take regarding her?" Mark asserted, advancing menacingly with the bat. The entity directed its disquieting stare on him. It merely stated that she was put to sleep, uninjured. "Do not harm the dog belonging to my mother." Sarah experienced tears welling in her eyes. "What is your nature? What do you seek from us?" The monster observed her for an extended duration, its countenance inscrutable. "I am uncertain of my identity," it ultimately stated. For the first time, its voice exhibited genuine emotion. Ambiguity, possibly, or solitude. Desire to ascertain, desire to belong. Notwithstanding her trepidation, Sarah had a momentary surge of compassion. This entity had not requested its existence. The outcome was a consequence of actions taken against Maya, an experiment that had either failed disastrously or succeeded remarkably, contingent upon the intended objective. "We can assist you," Mark stated hesitantly, slightly lowering the bat. "However, you must disclose your knowledge to us. From whence did you originate? In what manner did you transform into this?" The creature's ears, retaining their canine form despite its progressively non-canine physique, perked forward with curiosity. Uncertain, innately knowledgeable, innately distinct, developed rapidly, it observed Maya's immobile figure. She was aware. "Dismissed me. Not her canine." Sarah advanced cautiously. "If you do not belong to Maya, then to whom do you belong?" The creature's jaw contorted into a disquieting semblance of a smile. "Is it yours now?" It stated plainly. "You provided me with sustenance. You observed me. Your mother now." Prior to Sarah's response, her phone rang once more. On this occasion, she successfully provided the correct response. "Is Sarah present?" "Dr. Carter's voice was now more distinct. "Are you present? Is Mark present with you?" "Indeed, we are both present," she remarked, her gaze fixed on the beast. "Thus it is the canine juvenile. It arrived at our residence." A sudden inhalation was heard on the other end of the line. "That is unfeasible. I have been searching the clinic for several hours. The doors were secured. The windows are fortified. There is no escape." "Indeed, it discovered one," Sarah remarked somberly. "It is presently positioned in our living room, conversing." "Conversing?" Dr. Carter reiterated, incredulity apparent in his tone. "For example, genuine words?" "Indeed, Sarah has verified. Authentic English lexicon. Few and inadequately yet, certainly conversing." A prolonged silence ensued on the other end. Carter finally stated, "I am coming over, doctor. Refrain from taking any action. Do not incite it. Merely maintain composure till my arrival." The connection was lost. Sarah set down the phone, her eyes remaining focused on the thing. The message indicated that the doctor was arriving, demonstrating comprehension of the dialogue. "Desires to analyze me, incise me, obtain a blood sample." Mark advanced with caution. "No one will harm you. We seek to comprehend the current situation." The creature's eyes, disturbingly human, narrowed slightly. "Deceive," it stated bluntly. "Humans consistently deceive." Sarah had a shiver at hearing the words. How would it ascertain that? What events might it have encountered in its brief existence to develop such an opinion? "We are not deceiving," she asserted, attempting to maintain her composure. "We are apprehensive. Nonetheless, we do not wish to cause you harm." The monster appeared to contemplate this, its head tilting in a canine manner that now appeared hideous on its increasingly non-canine form. Fearful, it reiterated, as though evaluating the term. Indeed, I could detect worry. It advanced a step, its nose quivering. Intense odor reminiscent of victim. Mark's grasp on the baseball bat intensified. "Maintain your distance," he said. The entity disregarded him. Attention is now entirely focused on Sarah. It advanced once. More, each stride intentional and calculated. It reiterated that it would not harm you. "Require your assistance and responses." "Which responses?" Sarah inquired, her back now against the wall. "What information do you seek?" The monster was so near that she could sense its breath, warm and oddly pleasant, on her face. "What is my identity?" it inquired, and for the first time, there was an element of rawness and vulnerability in its tone. "What is my origin? What accounts for the disparity?" Notwithstanding her trepidation, Sarah experienced an overwhelming sense of compassion. This being was as perplexed by its presence as they were. It did not request existence, nor did it select to be whatever it was evolving into. "We are uncertain," she confessed quietly. "However, we are attempting to ascertain." Dr. Carter has been doing experiments. He has reached out to specialists who may provide assistance. The creature's eyes scrutinized hers, seeking deceit. "Truth," it ultimately declared, appearing content. "You speak the truth." It receded marginally, allowing her space to inhale. "We shall await the physician's arrival." It advanced to the center of the room and seated itself, maintaining a disconcertingly canine stance, despite its other non-canine attributes. Maya remained immobilized, ensnared in the trance induced by the beast. Could you liberate Maya?" Sarah inquired, indicating the German shepherd. "Kindly?" The monster saw Maya and thereafter emitted the same sequence of low, guttural noises. Maya's tense posture instantly softened, and she blinked, appearing bewildered. Upon sighting the beast, her hackles elevated. However, she refrained from launching another attack. Instead, she retreated gradually, positioning herself between the whelping box and the danger. The creature stated that she comprehends now, will not initiate another attack. Mark positioned himself beside Sarah, maintaining the bat in a lowered yet prepared stance. "What method did you employ to achieve that?" he inquired, his fascination temporarily eclipsing his anxiety. "What was that sound you produced?" The creature's head inclined once again. It stated merely old language, as though that elucidated all matters. "Prior before words." "Prior to," Sarah commenced, but was interrupted by a rap at the door. Dr. Carter had arrived accompanied by others. A woman, unfamiliar to Sarah, stood behind him. She was tall, with dark hair streaked with silver, tightly arranged in a stiff bun, and possessed piercing eyes that observed the action with clinical curiosity. "This individual is a physician. Eliza Chun," Dr. Carter stated, his voice strained with tension. "The geneticist to whom I referred?" Dr. Chun advanced, her eyes promptly locating the monster at the room's center. In contrast to the plainly frightened Dr. Carter and the horrified Sarah and Mark, Dr. Chun exhibited only interest. "Extraordinary," she whispered, encircling the thing gradually. "Truly excellent." The creature observed her with similar curiosity, its nostrils expanding as it detected her aroma. "Your scent is detectable," it stated, familiar. Dr. Chun became still, her demeanor abruptly cautious. "It is capable of speech," she remarked, indicating the evident. Indeed, Sarah has verified. Not proficiently, but enough clear. It appears to comprehend all that we articulate. Dr. Chun took a little notebook from her pocket and commenced recording notes swiftly. Expedited development, cognitive faculties significantly surpassing typical canine capabilities, basic verbal communication. She gazed upward at Dr. Carter. "Your decision to contact me was correct." Her tone contained an unsettling quality, a trace of enthusiasm that was incongruous with the circumstances. "Are you aware of what it is?" she inquired directly. Dr. Chun shut her notebook, her demeanor meticulously impassive. "I possess. Theories exist, although further testing is required for confirmation." The monster emitted a deep, rumbling noise, like a growl, yet serving as an unmistakable warning. No further examinations, it proclaimed, displaying teeth that were more serrated than even hours prior. No additional incisions, no further injections. Dr. Chen's eyes expanded little, the initial indication of her discomfort. She carefully recounted the examinations at the clinic to Dr. Carter. It possesses explicit memory formation. Exceptional. Disregard the tests for the moment. Mark interjected, perceiving the creature's escalating distress. Could you provide us with your knowledge on the subject? Or at the very least, what you conjecture? Dr. Chen paused, her eyes shifting from the monster to Dr. Carter, and then to Mark and Sarah. She ultimately stated that what she was about to disclose was confidential. I risk losing my career and even facing criminal penalties for merely addressing it. Sarah experienced an acceleration in her heart rate. We have no intention of implicating anyone. We merely seek to comprehend the situation. Dr. Chun acquiesced. Resolution established. 5 years prior, I was engaged in a confidential initiative, a breeding program for augmented military canines. The creature's ears elevated, its gaze directed towards Dr. Chun with unwavering intensity. Dr. Chun elaborated that the objective was to develop canines with enhanced intelligence, strength, and sensory capacities. Canines capable of accelerated learning, enhanced communication with their handlers, and increased autonomy in the field. Was this a K9 Elite Solutions? Dr. Carter inquired. From which facility did Maya originate? Dr. Chun acquiesced. Yes, among many locales. K9 Elite served as the public representation of a legal breeding initiative for police and military working dogs. However, there existed an alternative division, a concurrent program operating alongside the official one. What type of program? Sarah inquired, although she was starting to doubt the response. Dr. Chen's countenance became somber. Genetic modification. They were combining canine DNA with alternative genetic material. What type of additional material? Mark exerted pressure. Dr. Chun inhaled deeply. Diverse sources, advanced primates for cognitive abilities, specialist predator genes for improved sensory perception, and in the most clandestine sector of the operation, human DNA. The chamber became quiet. The creature appeared bewildered. Its eyes widened significantly at the revelation. Human DNA? Sarah reiterated, the phrase seeming peculiar on her tongue. Are you implying that statement? She indicated the thing. Is partially human? Not quite, Dr. Chen elucidated. The objective was not to produce a human-canine hybrid. The objective was to integrate distinct human characteristics, sophisticated cognitive skills, flexibility, and intricate problem-solving capabilities into a canine subject. The creature advanced toward Dr. Chun with purposeful strides. It stated, its stare fixed unwaveringly on her face. You contributed to my creation. It was not an inquiry. Dr. Chun recoiled, her professional composure faltering marginally. She promptly replied in the negative. I was just consulted initially. I abandoned the project upon recognizing how the trials had escalated to an extraordinary level. The thing commanded, lie, employing the same monotone it had utilized with Mark previously. Detect the deception. Dr. Chen's poise diminished more. She asserted that she was unaware they would escalate matters to this far. The program was intended to be terminated years prior, following the ethical probe. However, Dr. Carter determined that it was not the case. The component is ultimately aligning correctly. It has been relocated underground. And Maya, Sarah inquired, gazing at her cherished dog, who remained steadfastly positioned in front of her typical puppies. What is her role in this context? Dr. Chen exhaled audibly. Given the information you provided regarding her experience as a retired police dog from the K9 Elite program, I believe she was among the initial test subjects. Not suitable for the most sophisticated alterations, but may be applicable for preliminary experimentation. Augmented cognition, enhanced sensory faculties. Sarah reflected on Maya's law enforcement career. Her rapid acquisition of commands and her superior performance compared to other canines in her training cohort. Her handlers frequently commented on her exceptional intelligence. Upon her conception, Mark commenced. Something was activated, Dr. Chun completed for him. Certain latent genetic material that remained unexpressed in Maya but was activated during reproduction. The monster remained mute during the exchange, absorbing the information with its disturbingly human eyes. It spoke again, its voice more robust and articulate than before, evolving in tandem with the rest of its being. It was not a coincidence. It was intentional. Someone orchestrated my existence. Dr. Chen's demeanor validated the hypothesis. She conceded that it is plausible. The K-9 elite maintained records for all their dogs, even post-placement. If someone from the original program wished to persist in their endeavors, they may have monitored Maya and awaited an opportune moment. But whom? Sarah asserted. What is the reason for this timing? What distinguishes us? Prior to Dr. Chen's response, the monster executed a rapid, abrupt motion, its head pivoting sharply toward the window. A presence approaches, it intoned, its voice subdued with caution. 3 individuals, equipped with weapons. Dr. Carter approached the window, scrutinizing gingerly through the curtains. A van is parked down the block, he confirmed. Black, devoid of marks. I observe no individuals within. The creature's muscles contracted, its body descending into a protective stance known by Sarah. It asserted unequivocally that it was not the cops. Not acquaintances. They emit an odor reminiscent of laboratories, reagents. Dr. Chen's countenance had turned ashen. They have located us, she murmured. They must have been surveilling me or scrutinizing Dr. Carter's research queries. Who discovered us? Mark insisted, his hold on the baseball bat intensifying. What is the subject of your discussion? Dr. Chun indicated the creature, referring to its creators. Those who desire its return. Sarah experienced a chilling fear permeating her body. What is their motivation for reclaiming it? What actions would they undertake with it? Dr. Chen's demeanor was sufficiently revealing. Examine me, the monster said, its tone unsettlingly serene. Analyze me, get knowledge from me, and create additional entities akin to me. A automobile door closed softly, followed by another. We must depart, Dr. Chun stated with urgency. Proceed to the rear. What is the status of Maya? What about the puppies? Sarah inquired, anxiety surging in her throat. Bring them if possible, but we must go swiftly, Dr. Chun said. These individuals will not hesitate to eradicate anyone who obstructs their path. Mark was immediately in motion, retrieving his car keys, mobile phone, and a torch. Sarah, retrieve the puppies. I will assist with Maya. Carter stated, I will prepare my vehicle, as he proceeded towards the rear exit. We can utilize the passageway situated behind the residences. The creature observed the commotion with an unusual tranquility. It stated unequivocally that it would not escape. They possess equipment capable of monitoring my location. What is your source of knowledge regarding that information? Sarah inquired while swiftly collecting the sobbing puppies into a little carrier. The creature's gaze intersected with hers. It asserted, tapping its skull with a paw-like appendage, that it was born with knowledge. Information exists here. The means of its presence is unknown. Dr. Chun inspected the rear windows, her actions meticulous despite her apparent trepidation. She whispered, genetic memory. They successfully encoded information straight into DNA. A sound emanated from the front of the home, subtle yet distinct. An individual is examining the door handle. Dr. Chun said that the time has elapsed. We must depart immediately. The creature advanced to the room's middle, its posture erecting, attaining an almost majestic demeanor despite its ongoing transformation. It commanded you to proceed with a clarity and power previously absent. I remain. What is it? No exclamation mark permitted. Sarah resisted, despite Mark's insistence that she proceed to the rear exit. They will capture you. They will inflict pain upon you. The creature's mouth formed an eerie semblance of a smile. It stated plainly, Protect you. Maternal figure? Family? Before Sarah could contest more, a crash emanated from the front of the home, signaling the door being forcibly opened. Maya emitted a cautionary bark, prompting Mark to tug Sarah more forcefully toward the rear. He emphasized that we must depart. We cannot be held accountable if we are also apprehended. The monster gazed at them one final time, a semblance of affection evident in its two human eyes. Proceed, it reiterated. We will locate you. Commitment. It then faced the front of the house, its body descending into a combative posture, a profound growl emanating from its throat, a sound beyond canine capability, resonating through the air as if it were a tangible force. The final image Sarah beheld as Mark dragged her out the back door was the creature, an extraordinary entity forged from science and enigmas, positioned between them and the intruders, safeguarding the family it had adopted. Sarah, Mark, Maya, and the four puppies entered Dr. Carter's automobile. Dr. Chun positioned herself alongside them, her expression taut with anxiety. To what destination are we proceeding? Sarah inquired in her capacity as a physician. Carter withdrew, maintaining his lights off while maneuvering through the dim alley. Dr. Chun stated that a colleague of hers operates a private laboratory around 2 hours to the north, and someone in whom I have confidence. We will be secure there, at least for the time being. Sarah turned in her seat, gazing back at the residence that had been their home. What concerning? She was unable to identify the creature or recognize the peculiar bond she had started to experience with it, despite her trepidation. Dr. Chin's demeanor softened marginally. It is remarkable, she said softly, exceeding all anticipated outcomes of the program. If it decides to locate us, I am confident it will. Upon turning onto the main road, Sarah observed flashing lights in the distance. Law enforcement vehicles are attending to reports of a disturbance. It is too late to provide assistance. What were the circumstances that led to this occurrence? She inquired, not genuinely anticipating a response. How did our lifestyles transform into this? Mark grasped her hand firmly. I am uncertain, he acknowledged. However, we will resolve it. Collectively. Maya whined gently from the rear, nudging the carrier housing her puppies. She seems to comprehend that nothing would return to its previous state. As the city lights diminished in the distance, Sarah contemplated the entity they had abandoned. The entity that had referred to her as mother, that had vowed to locate them once more. Hybrid of canine and another entity. A scientific marvel or a grave error, contingent upon one's perspective. She contemplated the outcome once the transformation concluded. Upon the completion of its evolution, what will it transform into? What would it desire? Most concerning of all, were there others akin to it, poised to emerge? Questions proliferated in her head as they traversed the night, evading one peril, only to advance toward an ambiguous future. The sole certainty was that the world Sarah had inhabited, the uncomplicated, ordinary life she had constructed with Mark and Maya, was irrevocably lost. A novel and unprecedented entity had assumed its position. 2 weeks elapsed in a haze of apprehension and adaptation. Dr. Chen's associate, a retired geneticist named Dr. Harmon, transformed an antiquated agricultural estate into a private research institution, both a laboratory and a sanctuary for exceptional cases, as he referred to them. It was sequestered, encircled by vast expanses of forest that afforded both seclusion and protection. Sarah saw from the window of their temporary accommodations as Mark engaged with the puppies in the enclosed yard beneath. The 4 typical puppies had progressed as expected. With eyes now open, they navigate unsteadily on improving legs, while their distinct personalities begin to manifest. Maya remained near them, always watchful. However, some of her anxiety diminished as the days progressed without occurrence. The opposite was true with Sarah. Each unforeseen noise startled her. Each shadow at twilight accelerated her heartbeat. She continually anticipated the sight of those disconcertingly human eyes observing her from the shadows. No progress yet? Dr. Chun inquired, approaching her at the window. Sarah declined with a shake of her head. Is there no indication of it? She was unable to determine a name for the creature. Mark proposed the name Titan, asserting it suited the puppy's remarkable power and presence. Dr. Chun favored clinical titles, the topic, or the hybrid. Sarah was unable to utilize any option. Designating it would render it tangible, solidifying the bond she both dreaded and could not refute. Dr. Chun stated that the satellite imagery had arrived, positioning a tablet on the windowsill between them. Since the night of our departure, Sarah gazed at the screen, displaying a pixelated aerial image of their area. Dr. Harmon had leveraged certain connections to obtain surveillance footage that could elucidate the events following their escape. Approximately 20 minutes after our departure, Dr. Chun elucidated, tapping the screen to initiate the video. Sarah observed diminutive beings traversing her residence. Individuals attired in dark garments, some with what appeared to be specialist apparatus. They abruptly dispersed, fleeing in various directions. An additional entity traversed the frame. Something swift, close to the earth, flitting between shadows. It has escaped, Dr. Chun remarked, her tone oscillating between professional intrigue and real admiration. It successfully eluded a specialized tactical force trained for its arrest. Sarah was not astonished. Despite its partially formed condition, the creature exhibited intellect and capabilities significantly exceeding what should have been feasible. Where has it gone? She inquired, narrowing her eyes at the pixelated footage. Dr. Chun disapproved by shaking her head. The satellite lost its signal here, she indicated, gesturing towards a wooded region at the periphery of their community. If it seeks to remain hidden, she need not complete the contemplation. If the monster desired to remain hidden, it would succeed, only revealing itself when prepared. What the men who arrived for it? Sarah inquired. Do you have any knowledge of their identities? Dr. Chun's countenance soured. Judging by their equipment and techniques, it is quite probable that this is a private recovery team operating on behalf of those who persisted with the program post-official termination. I have been doing discreet inquiries to trace the funding, but the individuals responsible have effectively concealed their activities. A rap at the door disrupted them. Dr. Harmon entered, his lined visage marked by apprehension. He stated, without introduction, that we may have an issue. I have been observing police frequencies and news alerts for any anomalies. A sequence of incidents has occurred in rural regions between this location and your residence. What type of incidents? Mark inquired, having entered with Maya, while the puppies slumbered in their enclosure. Dr. Harmon provided him with a printout. Deceased livestock discovered. A hunter has been unaccounted for since 3 days ago. Last night, a family reported observing an entity that resembled neither a dog nor a wolf near their property, coinciding with a mystery power outage. Sarah experienced a shiver ascend her spine. You believe it is? Dr. Harmon acknowledged his uncertainty. However, the movement pattern indicates an object proceeding in this direction. An entity sufficiently astute to remain concealed and robust enough to subdue huge fauna. Mark examined the map that accompanied the report. These incidences create a clear trajectory from our residence to this location. It is monitoring our movements, Dr. Chun stated. Her voice softened with understanding. As it assured, Sarah recalled the creature's final utterances to them. We will locate you. Commitment. At that moment, it appeared to be a solace, a confirmation that they were not forsaking it. Currently, with tales of deceased animals and absent individuals, that assurance has assumed a more ominous connotation. She stated that it is uncertain whether it is accountable for the hunter's absence, although she was unsure whom she was attempting to persuade. Dr. Chun cast her a dubious glance. You observed its rapid evolution. In 2 weeks, the outcome is unpredictable. Dr. Harmon asserted the necessity for preparation. If it is approaching, and I believe it is, we must be prepared. In what manner are you prepared? Mark inquired, his hand instinctively settling on Maya's head. What are we expected to do against an entity capable of outsmarting skilled military personnel? Dr. Harmon's countenance was somber. I own tranquilizers formulated for huge carnivores. Should it be required, we can— No, Sarah interjected, astonished by the intensity of her tone. We will not inflict harm upon it. Sarah, Mark commenced softly. She asserted that we are unaware if it is assaulting individuals. The hunter may have experienced an accident, and wildlife frequently perishes in the forest. Dr. Chun inquired about the household whose power outage coincided with their observation of anything peculiar, her tone deliberately neutral. Merely a coincidence? Sarah lacked a response to that. The notion of the beast intentionally severing power to a family's residence, confining them in darkness, sent a shiver down her spine. What actions would it have taken subsequently if the sighting had not been reported and it had not been frightened away? Dr. Harmon, ever the scientist, advised against hasty conclusions. We will enhance security and install motion sensors around the perimeter. Should it become near, we shall be informed. Promptly, an alarm erupted from Dr. Harmon's computer. He hurried to examine it, his complexion draining as he scrutinized the screen. He reported motion detected at the eastern fence line, a significant occurrence. Sarah approached the window, gazing at the twilight tree line delineating the boundary of the property. Initially, she perceived only silhouettes and undulating branches. Subsequently, motion, and being transitioning from one area of obscurity to another. Excessively intentional to be wind, excessively fluid to be human. It has arrived, she said. Dr. Harmon was already in motion, retrieving his tranquilizer gun from a secured cabinet. Dr. Chun accompanied him, entering the security code to access a more menacing weapon. What is that? Mark insisted, scrutinizing the second firearm. Insurance, Dr. Chun stated bluntly. Should tranquilizers prove insufficient? Sarah experienced illness. This was entirely erroneous. They were poised to confront the creature as if it were a perilous beast, a menace to be eliminated. Nevertheless, she was unable to dispel the recollection of its eyes. Perceptive, cognizant, imbued with an emotion resembling yearning as it addressed her as mother. Wait, she replied, positioning herself to obstruct the doorway. Allow me to venture out there unaccompanied. Mark responded unequivocally in the negative. We are unaware of the transformation that Entity has undergone in the past fortnight. It provided us with protection, Sarah reminded him. It remained to confront those individuals, allowing us to flee. Alternatively, it remained to face them, perceiving them as adversaries, Dr. Chun contended. Its motivations remain unknown to us. Another alarm activated, another motion sensor engaged. This one was nearer to the residence. Is circling, Dr. Harmon noted, evaluating our defenses. Sarah took a decision that stemmed from a profound inner conviction, which she could not entirely articulate. I am venturing outside. It sought me and us. I will not permit it to be confronted with firearms. Before anyone could intervene, she exited through the door and onto the porch. The nighttime air was brisk against her skin, imbued with the fragrance of pine and moist soil. She inhaled deeply and then shouted into the encroaching darkness. I am aware of your presence. You may emerge now. For an extended duration, no events transpired. Gradually, a figure materialized from the darkness at the periphery of the yard. Sarah's breath became constricted in her throat. The entity that emerged into the diminishing light little resembled the dog that had been born a little over 2 weeks prior. It measured approximately 4 feet in height at the shoulder, possessing a slender and muscular physique, adorned with glossy ebony fur. Its limbs were elongated, its talons more prominent, and its visage an unusual amalgamation of canine and another entity. Features characterized by elevated cheekbones and a more pronounced brow. However, it was the eyes that genuinely caused Sarah's heart to falter. The same profound, discerning look remains, now imbued with an unmistakable knowledge and sentience. This was not an animal. This was a sentient entity. You have arrived, she remarked gently. The monster tilted its head in a disconcertingly human manner. It promised, its voice now deeper and smoother, yet still exhibiting an atypical cadence. I informed you that I would locate you. Sarah heard the door open behind her. Mark, Dr. Chun, and Dr. Harmon behind her, maintaining a respectful distance. She saw their stress. Nearly audible was the quick throbbing of their hearts. Did you injure that hunter? She inquired immediately, seeking clarification. The individual who has disappeared? The creature inclined its head, contemplating. A man wielding a firearm, it stated, observed me and attempted to fire. I instilled fear in him. He sprinted and tumbled into a ravine. A momentary cessation, refrained from assault, refrained from lethal action. Sarah desired to accept it as truth. The creature had never deceived them previously and possessed the ability to discern falsehoods in others. What about the animals? Are the livestock present? The creature's ears were somewhat flattened. Required sustenance, necessitated vigor, developing, in pain, perpetually famished. The admission revealed a certain vulnerability, underscoring that despite its swift development, this entity remained nascent, continually learning and motivated by unchosen needs. What is your current request? Mark inquired, advancing to position himself alongside Sarah. What prompted your presence here? The creature's gaze moved to his, then across Dr. Chun and Dr. Harmon before reverting to Sarah. It merely stated, answers. I require clarification regarding my identity. Require an explanation. Dr. Chun advanced slowly, her scientific curiosity clearly surpassing her apprehension. She stated, her voice unwavering despite the quiver in her hands, that you're the product of a genetic experiment. A hybridization of canine DNA with that of other species, including humans. You were created to be exceptional. The creature assimilated this information, its face inscrutable. The experiment was repeated, designed to serve as a weapon. Dr. Chun exhibited hesitation. That was presumably one objective, correct? Augmented intelligence, strength, and flexibility are all attributes advantageous in wartime contexts. However, you have evolved beyond that now, Sarah stated promptly. You have evolved into an unforeseen entity, something novel. The creature appeared to contemplate this, its formidable body unervingly motionless. It then articulated once again, exhibiting a clarity and intricacy that had previously been absent. I recall events I have never witnessed, it articulated slowly. Locations I have yet to visit. Knowledge that is inappropriate for me to possess. My mind is congested. Dr. Chen's eyes expanded in astonishment. She exhaled, genetic memory. They embedded information right into your DNA. What is the reason? The entity inquired. The query possessed a quality that was simultaneously innocent and timeless. No one possessed a response to that. The quiet interval between them was permeated by the twilight, sounds of crickets, and faraway owls. Maya then emerged at the doorway, her stance vigilant yet non-threatening. She gazed at the thing for an extended duration, no longer exhibiting fear or aversion. An unperceived communication transpired between them. Ultimately, the entity articulated once more. It stated that it cannot remain here. Men continue to hunt. I will locate. Will jeopardize you. What is your destination? Sarah inquired, taken aback by the pain the question elicited in her chest. The creature gazed at the remote mountains, outlined against the darkening sky. It indicated a distant location, in locations devoid of human presence. Require time, require room to transform. Transform into what? Dr. Harmon inquired, articulating for the first occasion. The entity directed its disquieting gaze on him. It acknowledged its uncertainty. However, we shall ascertain the truth. Sarah experienced tears welling behind her eyes. This sorrow for a creature she had once dreaded was illogical. A being conceived under extraordinary conditions that ought never to have come into being. Here it was, tangible, sentient, exercising agency over its future. You need not remain solitary, she remarked gently. We are able to assist you. The creature's mouth formed an ambiguous smile. It stated kind. However, it poses a threat to you, the puppies and Maya. It hesitated and then stated, "We shall remember." Maternal figure. The word struck Sarah with the intensity of a physical impact. Maternal figure. Neither by birth nor by choice, but by circumstance and association. She had nourished it, observed it, and was the first to extend care towards it. It was departing to safeguard her and all others. "At the very least, disclose your name," Mark stated, his voice strained with unforeseen emotion. "It is advisable for you to possess a name." The monster paused, seemingly contemplating the significance of the matter. It uttered a solitary word, not in English nor in any language familiar to Sarah, but a sound that appeared to reverberate through the atmosphere like the remote echo of something primordial. In your terminology, it subsequently indicated, signifies in the midst of, neither one thing nor another. Interspecies realms. Sarah reiterated, the name embedding itself in her heart. "Shall we encounter you once more?" Between gazed at her with those perceptive eyes. Indeed, it was articulated with subdued assurance. "When the appropriate moment arrives, when I comprehend my intended purpose." With those remarks, it turned and proceeded toward the trees, neither rushing nor escaping, but advancing with purpose and dignity. At the periphery of the darkness, it halted, glancing back one final time. It expressed gratitude, succinctly, for existence. Subsequently, it vanished, dissolving into the darkness with a stillness unattainable by any regular being. The 5 individuals remained in the yard long after it had disappeared, each absorbed in their own reflections. Dr. Harmon was the one who ultimately shattered the silence. Having been a scientist for 40 years, he stated quietly, "I have never encountered anything of that nature." It was not merely intelligent. It was self-aware, philosophical, and capable of abstract reasoning. Mark expressed gratitude, his prior apprehension supplanted by awe. It comprehended the nature of its bestowed gift, regardless of its inadvertent origin. Dr. Chen was already inputting notes in her tablet, her analytical mind swiftly recording their observations. The rate of its development is unparalleled. If it persists in evolving at this rate, she left the thought unfinished, yet it was unnecessary. They comprehended the ramifications. Whatever between was evolving into, it would surpass the intentions of science and potentially exceed anything the world had before witnessed. Sarah remained mute, her gaze concentrated on the location where the monster had disappeared. She sensed Mark's arms encircle her shoulders, providing solace for an incomprehensible loss. "It will be fine," he stated gently. "It rendered its decision." She said, "I am aware. I ponder whether we will ever ascertain its eventual outcome." As they prepared to re-enter, Maya hesitated, her eyes fixed on the woodland. She emitted a gentle whimper, not indicative of fear or caution, but rather a poignant farewell. 6 months later, Sarah sat on their new porch, seeing Maya and her now-adult puppies frolicking in the yard of the home they had reconstructed far from their former neighborhood. Following Between's departure, they collaborated with Dr. Chun to unveil the illicit scheme, although numerous facts remain confidential. The individuals who pursued Between were apprehended, and the clandestine facility was decommissioned. Life had gradually resumed a new normal. Nonetheless, Sarah continued to gaze toward the mountains on clear days, pondering the whereabouts of Between, its transformation, and whether it had discovered the answers it sought. She was on the verge of entering when she observed Maya abruptly halt, her ears attuned to the remote tree line. The German shepherd remained silent, exhibiting neither barking nor growling. She observed attentively, vigilant yet unperturbed. Sarah directed her attention accordingly, but observed nothing out of the ordinary. Nevertheless, she sensed it, a being, an awareness, a quiet bond spanning the gap. "We are fine," she murmured to the void. "I trust you are as well." Although she received no spoken reply, she was convinced she sensed a response, a delicate caress upon her consciousness, a warmth akin to sunlight, conveying a singular, unequivocal message. "Until we reconvene, Mother."